welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony, he is Ron, and together we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, to say it's kicking off is an interesting place to start. Maybe we should start with the UK, because of course there is a state visit. I'm from the United Kingdom. When I was on the radio in England, I would cover the royal events all the time. I've met the king. I've announced for the royals, so I kind of do have a kind of vested connection. I don't think they should have invited him. I mean, that's really my opinion. This what we've seen of him in the golden carriages and all the pomp and the ceremony is making Trump think, this, I could get used to this. What I don't think he realizes is that in England it's just ceremonial. It's not actually real. Do you think he's worked that bit out?
You mean like Charles isn't actually running the country? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, that the king is just there for protocol purposes.
I mean, like, you watch Trump in this scenario, and he is just in all his glory. I mean, we've talked about this, but why did Trump want to be president? And, of course, the MAGA people are all like, he sacrificed for us. He gave up a great life, to work for the people. But we know, like, there's like a small handful of reasons why Trump wanted to be president desperately. One, obviously, stay out of jail, first and foremost. Second is, make gobs of money, and he's made more money off being president than he has in every other business venture combined in his entire life. So money, immunity from prosecution, but also it's the adulation,
yes.
the worship, having tens of millions of people worship him.
Yes.
But then it's also this. This is the fourth prong of the chair, fourth leg of the chair.
Right.
It's the pomp and circumstance, the being, we see it we're trying to recreate this at the White House. He's knocking down trees and building ballrooms and gold everywhere. This is what he likes, the regal trappings of power. And, when you see him riding in that gilded carriage, it's like that. That's it for him. That's the pinnacle.
Let's take a look.
In any event, the main objective is pageantry. Apparently, the president told the pool press who were flying with him overnight yesterday, enjoy yourselves, okay? He said he was really, really, really looking forward to this. He said it's going to be a beautiful event. Now you can hear the British national anthem playing as the carriages continue to move towards, eventually, Windsor Castle. And then they're going to have a lunch, and then there's going to be more pageantry. The president and the first lady will lay a wreath on the tomb of Queen Elizabeth II, who the president really, really appreciated. He met her twice here, one an official state visit, which was at Buckingham Palace, and then a later visit here to Windsor Castle. This is the first time there's been this kind of major state visit for an American president at Windsor Castle. Usually they're in London at Buckingham Palace, and they go up the mall. But certainly Windsor Village has been decked out with the Stars and Stripes and the Union Jack. And so as much pageantry as they can muster without the usual people involved is happening right now.
Really? Can I look yet?
I have a question for you.
So embarrassing. Go ahead.
Since you're from there and everything.
Yeah.
So, first of all, typical lovely English weather I saw there too. Nice and gray and blustery.
Yep.
Beautiful.
All part of the deal.
But my question for you is, like, what's the plan here? Like, is this something that, like, the royals are doing on their own because, like, this is what royals are supposed to be doing to, like, justify their existence? Or is, like, the government actually prodding them to do this? Is there actually, like, policy reasons, things that they're trying to accomplish here, diplomatic things?
Correct. So it's nothing to do with Charles. Charles probably hates Donald Trump. Camilla definitely hates Donald Trump. Do you remember when she winked at the camera when he was there last time, as if to say, this guy's an idiot? So the royal family have no respect for Donald Trump. If anything, they think he's terrible for America and terrible for the world. And they know that, right? So put that to one side. the issue here is that the United Kingdom kind of stuck to cut its nose off to spite its face with Brexit. So when they called the bluff on the British people, they'll be like, oh, they'll never vote to leave the European Union. Gave them the vote, and they voted to leave. That was a disaster for the British economy because all of our trading partners, most of our trading partners, were in Europe. The free movement of people, they blamed the migrants, that's how they got the vote, that whole thing. So now here we are nearly a decade later, and they still have a migrant problem. It's just not EU migrants. It's people coming, from other places in small boats across the English Channel. So that's also caused the rise of the far right, and they're going for it. They've kind of forgotten, they've got selective amnesia about this issue. So because of Brexit, we don't have the trading partners that we need. So the British economy is on its knees. It was the only of the European economies not to recover, see growth after the pandemic. So the British economy is flatlining. So we need a deal with the Americans. That's basically, it's like a lifeline. So that's why when Keir Starmer came to the Oval Office and presented that envelope from his inside pocket, oh, I have this gift for you from the King, that whole sequence it was just like, oh, for British people, it was like, oh, we know you have to do this. We've got to somehow find a trading partner. And so they've announced today some big deal with NVIDIA and various like a tech package, which I'm sure, like with everything, will come to nothing eventually, but it's something to announce, and I suppose to give them license to get away with it.
And they know he loves Charles, and he like he reveres the royal family, right?
Yeah. I mean, let's not confuse what Trump has done in the Oval Office with like 16th century interiors of Windsor Castle and various other palaces. Buying freezers from Home Depot and spraying them with gold paint and sticking them over the fireplace where they're not supposed to be and they look completely wrong is not the equivalent of being in an historic palace. But, the British people respect the monarchy, but they know that ultimately the monarchy is just there for, it's for ceremonial purposes. And so we don't take it too seriously. And people love Charles because he's been around all our lives. But, Donald Trump thinks that Charles is the king and a ruler and thinks he's like Henry VIII. So this is the fundamental problem here. This is going to give Trump ideas. And I'm not convinced that this trade deal, or whether all this is worth it to solidify the special relationship that the Brits are still holding on to from World War II.
So I noticed they did, in addition to the gilded cage we just saw.
Cage or carriage?
I'm sorry. Gilded carriage.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure Elizabeth probably felt it was a cage a lot of times.
Metaphorically, I think you're probably
Diana certainly.
Yeah.
But they also did the flyover of Windsor Castle with the jets.
That's right.
And
the
they
red
kept
arrows.
all the protesters way. By the way, one of the most lost I ever was in my life was in Windsor. Those streets are just, there's no street that goes straight.
No.
It's like, you can try and go 1 mile in one direction, but you have to go
That's right.
Like I got
Edinburgh's the same. I mean, this is kind of how it is. It's because these streets were built for horse and carriage, and so they couldn't handle a deep incline. So you have to kind of do this to get anywhere. But, the protesters have really gone out of their way to make the point that Donald Trump is a fascist and is a dictator. And as we know, we had this huge projection on the side of Windsor Castle of Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, and including the drawing that
was real.
Sorry?
I thought that was a meme. I thought that was
real.
AI.
No,
they
that was
really
real.
did that.
Yeah, they arrested 4 people for it.
I saw it, but I thought it was fake. I didn't know
they
it was
rented
real.
the hotel opposite,
wow.
and they squirted the projection out of the window, and they mapped it to Windsor Castle, and so it covered.
I had no idea that was real. Wow.
I mean, I told you that the Brits have had protest in their DNA for generations. I mean, they really know how to do it, and so I was very proud that obviously there's a lot of pushback about whether or not they should have been arrested for it, because it's still your kind of, your right to assemble, your right to protest, your right to free speech. I just don't know whether a projection on a royal palace is, legally is probably a grey area. But people have certainly made their opinions known. They've tried to keep Trump away from all of this, and Trump keeps lying about stuff like, oh, there's never been a state event at the Windsor Castle. It normally takes place in Buckingham Palace. No, there's been dozens of them over the years. He's lying about that. Yeah. He's lying about that. I mean, the only kind of historical thing is it's the only second state visit of an American president. But then again, Trump's the only American president to kind of win a non-consecutive re-election. So, it's kind of there by default, isn't it? But no, I mean, the whole thing is embarrassing. It shouldn't be happening. And everybody, including Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, knows that Trump is a terrible person. I don't think they take the fascism as seriously as they should. If we said, look, Eisenhower met with Hitler and, all this happened years ago, right? So there is history of trying to appease the dictator and it just not working. And I think that I just wish that they would stand up for themselves a little more. I mean, the leader of the third party, the Liberal Democrats, has refused to attend this event, standing up for the war in Gaza. And, various people have refused to attend. Dignitaries have refused to attend. So, this is a very, very controversial visit. Don't think that the British people are all about this. They are absolutely not.
Okay, I didn't know that. Well, that's good. I'm glad you filled us in on all that. I will say my last point on this is probably the best clotted cream ice cream there I ever had in my life.
Really?
I didn't even know that was a thing, clotted cream, where they make ice cream out of it, but just absolutely amazing. At Windsor Castle, I had it. It was fantastic.
You could put clotted cream on anything, not to be confused with the American cream that comes in a can.
Yeah. Americans you got to experience clotted cream ice cream. That's
well, we have clotted cream on a scone, right? Which you might call a scone. A scone, which you don't cut, you break apart with your hands. Lots of rules, and then you put the jam on.
I learned a lot of rules about those when I was.
And then the clotted cream on next, depending on whether you're from Cornwall or from Devon. Different rules for different regions. But anyway, let's digress. So that's going down right over there, but over here we have these hearings with Kash Patel that have caused quite a stir. And you have a few kind of views on this, but maybe we should start by looking at some of the interrogations of Kash Patel. Just tell us why he is being heard by this select committee in the first place.
Okay, well, this is mostly about Epstein, but of course, the Charlie Kirk stuff happened too. Although that wasn't the original reason why these hearings were set up. They were set up mostly about a few different things. Epstein, the mass firings at the FBI of agents, pulling agents off of very serious investigative work like cyber terrorism, counterterrorism, child sex trafficking, internet, porn stuff. Pulling agents off of those assignments and having them round up migrants, helping ICE. So those were kind of like the original subject matters of this hearing. But of course, in the meantime, and this Kirk thing happened, and Patel was involved in a lot of controversial stuff surrounding that, which kind of like took this was already going to be like a 9 on the intensity dial, and it turned it to like an 11. And that's certainly what happened.
There's been, a few of the interrogations got very, very heated. But the first one I want to play is from Jamie Raskin, because I actually thought that he was the best of them in many ways. He's such a great orator and lawyer, and amongst other things. But he kind of made a very solid argument towards the FBI director. Let's take a look.
Well, most other new FBI directors drew on their experience as FBI agents. You didn't have that. But you did write a picture book trilogy for children ages 5 and up based on your experience clashing with President Trump's political enemies. In your book, you describe your literary alter ego, Kash the Knight, as a wacky, easily bored wizard carrying out King Donald's vengeance by driving his enemies out of the kingdom. In the books, King Donald is besieged by the evil Hillary Queentown, but saved in the end by Kash. Then Kash goes on to catch mules who are stealing the 2020 election for the great King Donald from Sleepy Joe. And then in the third book, Kash takes down the dragon of the jalapenos, nicknamed the DOJ. Your supporters had hoped that you would graduate from imagining yourself a romantic fairy tale knight to actually running America's premier federal law enforcement agency. Alas, just as we've learned how dangerous it is to put a science-denying anti-vaxxer in charge of our public health, we've learned how dangerous it is to name as director of the FBI a man who thinks of himself as a fairy tale knight who keeps a fire-breathing dragon named DOJ at home to forcibly drive villains out of the kingdom.
I wish we'd have seen Kash Patel's face during that, rather than just holding the camera on him. I mean, this is he was basically seeking just to ridicule Kash Patel for being the kind of nutcase that he is.
Honestly, it's like this particular subject, this children's book, is a sore subject for me because, you know, I cover MAGA. That's the premise of the show, right? So I was well aware back in 2021 and 2022. 2022 is when these children's books came out, that Kash Patel was going to be a very senior member of the Trump administration if Trump won.
Yeah.
Now, this is at a time when really I think most Democrats in the wake of January 6th thought there's no way that Donald Trump will ever be president again. America won't elect him. And I never believed in that premise. And that's why I remained hyper vigilant in paying attention to what he and the people in his orbit were up to. And one of the big things I paid attention to was who was likely to get senior jobs in his administration if he won, and keeping tabs on them. And one of those people was Kash Patel. So I posted a lot about this back then. I posted all about the children's book and the plot and the grift and how insane it was. In fact, he, to promote this book, rented a castle in Texas, rented out like a mock castle, and rented a trebuchet, and got a whole bunch of watermelons for the kids, and plastered photos of Adam Schiff's face on the watermelon, since Trump calls him Watermelon Head, and was having the kids shoot Adam Schiff watermelons at the castle.
Yeah, it was like a family fun day.
I posted all that kind of stuff back then, and like it got no traction. Nobody paid attention to it because I think everybody thought, like, who is this guy? Why do we care about him? Why does any of this matter? This is foolishness. And I'm like, no. Trump wants to make this guy his FBI director if he wins. Like, we need to pay attention to what this guy's up to and who he is. And
he has no experience in law enforcement. So he's running the FBI.
No, none. He was Devin. He was Devin Nunes' staffer. This is how he got it, how he rose to power. I'll tell you exactly. So he was Devin Nunes' staffer on the Judiciary Committee during Russiagate. And he wasn't even a senior staffer. He wasn't even like his main man. He was on Devin Nunes' staff, and that kind of got him the ear of Nunes. So when Trump gets out of the White House, remember, he hires Devin Nunes to be the CEO of Truth Social. And
That's
Nunes
right.
leaves Congress and goes down to Palm Beach to live near Trump and run Trump media. And he takes with him Kash Patel, who goes down there. And that is how Patel got in with Trump, hanging around Mar-a-Lago and all this kind of stuff. And then he became good friends with Rick Grenell. And I watched this whole thing evolve, and I'm like, this guy's a nut. He's a total lunatic. He's a total grifter. He's selling all these products. And someday, if Trump wins, this guy is actually going to be a very powerful person in our government, which is going to be a really bad thing. But I will say, like, honestly, I was the only one talking about Kash Patel in 2022. Like, there was nobody else talking about him.
And the irony is that it was Kash Patel and Dan Bongino who were the main conspiracists about the Epstein files.
Yep.
And so now the irony that he's being put in charge, right, and Alex Jones, but the irony of him now being put in charge of the Epstein files, and this all kind of kicked off initially with the conspiracy about whether Epstein committed suicide or whether he was murdered, and so they were kind of peddling their thing. Then he gets the job inside the administration, and suddenly he takes a look at the paperwork and goes, okay, yeah, he committed suicide, and the MAGA people didn't want to believe that. So what do they think of him now?
Okay, that's a good question, because I think when he went in there, they were all like 100% on board. Like, this is our guy. He's gonna, lock everybody up in the deep state. Hillary, Bill. They're all gonna get locked up. Hunter, and it's gonna be great. And so here we are. It's September. There's no Epstein stuff. Not only is there no Epstein stuff, really, when everything started to unravel with Kash is when he went on the Fox Sunday morning show with Maria Bartiromo and Bongino, and they said Epstein killed himself. And that was like the moment when MAGA was like, what?
Yep.
Like, this is not what you've been telling us for 3 years. So I think that, like, and the Kirk thing was even worse, because, Charlie Kirk is like very, very high up in the pantheon of MAGA heroes. Like, there's nobody in MAGA very few people in MAGA who dislike Kirk. There are some, but few. And so when he was bungling and botching that investigation early on, and acting like a fool and talking about seeing Valhalla and all this stuff, and naming the wrong people, and he's having dinner at Rouse while he's tweeting about the case, I think that was it for them. Like, so many people in MAGA, like, they're not saying it out loud, but they are furious. They are fuming. They want him out and they want somebody else in. And I think that they've already got their guy. And I do think he's going to be fired, which we can talk about. But I think the reason for the whole Epstein cover up, we saw it today in the hearing today. Who gave the game away and showed us the reason why this is being covered up? Thomas Massie, a Republican of all people. Thomas Massie, in his questioning of Kash, what he said there shows you exactly why they're covering this up. It's more than Trump. Yep. It's bigger than Trump. Trump is part of it, but it's much bigger than that. Do you have that clip of Massie?
Yeah, let's take a look. Here it is. Yeah.
According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. And we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So
he's very good at non-answers, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he said in a Senate hearing, which was yesterday, he said that there is no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked girls or women to anyone
but himself. Yeah.
I mean, and Massie is just like, you're not, are you crazy? You're nuts. Yeah. That's totally everybody, nobody believes that.
Yeah.
So that is also why because Patel said that, And because of the way he behaved in this hearing, and he has been behaving this week, and because of other things we could talk about, I absolutely believe he is going to be fired soon, and he knows he's going to be fired. It's just that Trump doesn't want to do it right now, because Trump doesn't like to fire people when Democrats and the media are calling for somebody's scalp. He will typically wait, 3-4 weeks for things to die down a little, and then he will do it to try and make it look like it's his decision. So, I mean, we could talk about the reasons why I believe that. You may disagree, but I think the guy's gone.
Well, I want to show this clip of Adam Schiff interrogating him, because it was actually the Schiff, and I'm a big fan of Schiff. I think he's also a brilliant orator and very, he really makes a strong case, which is why he got under Trump's skin so much in the January 6 hearings. But I actually thought that Schiff was quite underprepared for this, and I wasn't convinced that Democrats actually had the argument. It was the same with Cory Booker, and I did feel like I just wish they came to because there's so much here, and I felt like they were coming to the table with the wrong information, the wrong evidence. I mean, Schiff couldn't even pronounce Virginia Giuffre or Ghislaine Maxwell, and I just was like, oh, come on, you've got to get this right. It shows strength if you're in control. Let's take a quick look.
You clearly won't tell us the cabinet members associated with Mr. Epstein. Let me ask you one last question, and that is, right after she gives this testimony in front of an FBI agent, among others, she's transferred to a minimum security prison not suitable for a sex offender like herself. Who made that decision and why?
The Bureau of Prisons.
The Bureau of Decisions made it in
Prisons.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were going to suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of
you're
inmates.
not in the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform. Point of order. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
Both of you be quiet. Before I...
Yeah, that was Chuck Grassley trying to assert his authority at the age of 176.
None of that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
A witness is not supposed to be allowed to personally attack whoever is asking the questions.
Yeah.
You yell and scream at them, go off on tangents. Yeah, but you got like 90-year-old Grassley trying to run the hearing who, and Patel knows he can just walk all over him. I mean, I've been in courtrooms as a lawyer with, you go into certain courtrooms with certain judges, right? And some judges are like, no nonsense, no BS. Like, you got to be on your best behavior, button down. And then other judges kind of let you get away with murder. And you go in there and you take full advantage. You rant and rave and yell and scream. And, and that's what's happening here. Patel knows that with Grassley as chair, he can do whatever he wants. And that's what he did.
But he was playing to an audience of one, Ron. He was playing to Donald Trump.
Yeah, because he's trying to save his job.
Right, but I think that Trump would love what Patel did just then, in the same way that he loves his star Caroline Leavitt when she's up on the podium lying through her teeth for Trump. I honestly think that Patel, he hit all the Trump talking points. He nailed one on the watermelon head. I mean, all of the things that Trump would have wanted, Patel did. I see this solidifying his job rather than making it weaker.
Well, I mean, that's what people thought about Mike Walls too, who kind of did the same kind of deal. But I think the problem is that there are too many people close to Trump who have his ear on a daily basis who hate Kash Patel, and they want him out, and they know that he is a jerk, and they know he's incompetent, and they know his agency is a mess. And I think what they are telling Trump is that this guy is really a problem. If we have a domestic terrorist incident, or we have, and it's easy to show, like, you pulled all these people off a domestic terrorism, counterterrorism unit, and you got them rounding up migrants. And then, I think Trump saw the bungling and the lack of seriousness with the Kirk investigation. So, and you had a lot of people who were close to Kirk, including J.D. Vance, who I think were very upset, that Kash was having dinner at Rouse, in the middle while the guy was still on the loose. And I think that's why he ended up flying out there and just made it worse. Trump doesn't like when people embarrass him. And I think that Patel is embarrassing him. But I'll tell you what the real tell is, and it's reporting, I think it was from New York Times, which I believe, no, it was Fox. And I'll tell you, this is why I believe it, because it was a story written by Jackie Heinrich with Fox, who is the chief White House correspondent for Fox. And she cited 10 sources close to Trump. Now, Jackie has the best sources in journalism in the Trump White House. Like, she's the senior Fox correspondent. She knows everyone in there in that building. And so when she does a big story saying Kash Patel is going to get fired and cites 10 inside sources, I, for one, take that to the bank, that it's going to be very difficult to save his job. And what she said is this, is that when they reached out to Andrew Bailey, who is the Attorney General of Missouri, and convinced him to leave that job, which he did on Monday, leave that job and come in to hold Dan Bongino's hand as co-deputy director. What Bailey said to Trump was, I'm not interested. I don't want that. I don't want to be Bongino's babysitter. I don't want to be Patel's babysitter. I'm not leaving this job, which is a pathway to, being the governor of Missouri or being a senator at some point. I'm not leaving that to be Bongino's babysitter. And the reporting was that he was promised, if you take this gig, within 90 days, you'll be FBI director. So I absolutely believe that is the case. And I just think it's going to happen like at the end of the month when a lot of this furor dies down. So we'll see, maybe, maybe not. But you're right. Maybe he's certainly trying to save his job, but I think he knows it's going to be tough.
Yes, but, the Trump administration is the Muppet Show, basically. It's just kind of made up of various Muppets. And my concern is that he is a perfect foil for Trump, because Trump doesn't care about, national security or potential issues that the FBI need to be on the top of their game for. He's just going to send in the military every time. So in a way, it's kind of useful to have somebody who's a little bit incompetent and answers only to Donald Trump and doesn't bring any expertise to the table. And so that is my concern.
The other part of it is this, like, Secret Service isn't the only one tasked with protecting the president.
Yeah.
It's also the FBI.
Right.
So I think that when he saw what happened with Kirk and how this was all bungled by them, I think that hit close to home for Trump. And he's like, this is a guy who's supposed to be protecting my life and people close to me. And I'm not sure that he's up to the gig here. I mean, look, and the other thing is, the reporting is Bondi absolutely hates Patel. Bessent hates Patel. Like, there's people close to Trump that don't like him. He's got some advocates like Grinnell and a few others, but they're not the top people. So I think his days are numbered. I think Trump regrets bringing him in and listening to like people like Devin Nunes and Grinnell about Patel.
I hope you're right. We'll really do. And I
don't know that by the way, I don't know that this is a good thing, because I think Andrew Bailey is pretty damn terrible. So I don't know that this is like something to celebrate, but
right.
I think maybe, like, in other words, Bailey is like equally as malicious and malevolent and is equally all about going after Democrats and all that. But I think he's like more competent about doing that than Patel.
To me, it's just like, why would you put a vaccine conspiracist in charge of the CDC and HHS? Like, there is a very, very kind of controlled decision there. Trump purposely wanted to put the cat amongst the pigeons when it came to health. And he clearly wants to do the same with the FBI.
He does. But I just think like he's found his guy that will do the same thing without all the drama.
I understand. But then also, I mean, there's so much nuance to this, but like, what happens to Kash Patel if he's not in the circle of trust anymore?
Well, the reporting from Jackie is that he is going to get another job in the administration. Like, they can't fire people like him or Walsh because
there's too risky.
Or they what the reporting was that he's going to get Billy Longed. It's what the quote was, which was the IRS commissioner that he fired because he was totally incompetent. And he made him like ambassador to Iceland. I think that's what he made. So I can see like Kash being like ambassador to Mozambique, or some other.
Well, they'll just say to him
further down the food.
They'll be like, "Where do you want a vacation?" Like with Lara
we know
Trump.
Kash likes vacations. We know he likes hockey.
Yeah.
Big hockey fan. We know he likes Russia. Maybe they'll make him ambassador to Russia.
Yes.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Now, let's just talk a little bit about the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination in terms of Kash Patel putting out wrong information, basically kind of confusing everybody and causing this, I mean, really exposing his amateur abilities as an FBI director. I mean, that had knock-on effects for the Justice Department as well. I mean, they were having to play catch-up, and you had that governor kind of hearing about things from the press during press conference and stuff. So I want to kind of come on to Bondi and Blanche, really, because it's all connected, isn't it? And Bondi's kind of overreaction to anybody who is saying anything about Charlie Kirk, they are considering hate speech. I mean, this has had a backlash from the MAGA Republicans as well, hasn't it? Because they're all for free speech, and now all of a sudden you have the Attorney General claiming that hate speech comes under, a different banner. Let's take a quick look.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Rewind. I mean, this is major, isn't it? Now, as you know, I'm from a country where we have hate speech laws. So we don't have a First Amendment in the UK.
As we heard from J.D. Vance.
As you heard from J.D. Vance. And so hate speech is a crime. And if somebody puts in an official complaint about you, then it will be investigated and potentially criminalized. And I'm all for that, I'll be honest. I don't believe that hate speech should come under the banner of free speech. But to hear it come out the mouths of this kind of far-right Christian conservative Pam Bondi is a real kind of unusual event. What happened, do you think, that made her say this? And what is obviously she's now retracted it by trying to kind of use some kind of case law examples. But what is the real story behind this, Ron?
There is one person behind this, and it is the person who is behind most awful things in the Trump administration. Stephen Miller. This is all Stephen Miller. And who is Pam Bondi who is Pam Bondi talking to in that podcast? Who was the other woman sitting in the other chair? Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife. This is her new podcast. And she is the one who brings up the hate speech because this is what Stephen Miller wants to do. Stephen Miller doesn't believe in the First Amendment. He doesn't believe in the Constitution. He wants to weaponize these things to go after his enemies. He is a fascist. He is an authoritarian. You hear him speak. He makes it very clear who he is and what he's all about. He doesn't hide it like some of these other people. So the irony of obviously what we know is MAGA has been on the war path since the Kirk thing happened. And it started with anyone who celebrated, right, that they are going to go after you. It's an organized campaign. They have a whole bunch of them working on this project. I know the latest database that they said that they've assembled is like 60,000 names that they have of people who have posted on social media celebrate or saying like, I don't care, I'm happy that Kirk died or whatever. And they're making phone calls and emailing employers. And this is an orchestrated effort. They are literally on the war path to go to, this is their Reichstag fire incident, where they are using this as their excuse to hurt Democrat, to go after their political opponents. And so that's one thing. Getting them fired from their job is like what most of these people want to see happen. But that's not enough for Stephen Miller. And that's not enough for Pam Bondi. They want them in jail. They want to put them in jail. They want to lock them up. They want to arrest them.
But this is the same as Miller saying that Democrats are a domestic terror organization.
That's right. That's right. It's all part of connected. Going after the organization. But the problem is that for 10 years at least, the MAGA movement and the far right in the United States has been adamantly opposed to hate speech laws, which were floated and advanced during the Obama years and by Democrats, who wanted to perhaps take the United States in more of a European direction where hate speech codes are enforced. We heard a lot of that stuff during Obama, and that was something that Republicans pushed back hard against, challenged in Congress, challenged in the courts. We saw J.D. Vance run over to Europe and make speeches about this. Elon Musk has done the same thing, condemning these hate speech laws. But now they have one of their own. The attorney general came out and said this, and I can tell you the backlash on the right against Bondi was much more intense than from the left. They were furious at this, which forced her to come back the next day and sort of walk it back a little bit.
She kind of walked it back in a couple of posts on X or Truth Social or something, didn't she? And she just basically qualified the law. So she undid her own statements there. I mean,
and she's like, this is what I really meant all along. No.
Yeah. Well,
and in fact, I saw Miller in a subsequent interview make some comments that basically suggested like, no, I agree with everything Bondi said in that interview,
Todd Blanche was asked about this, referencing the protests in the Washington, D.C. restaurant, which I will never understand how these protesters were able to get so close to Donald Trump. I mean, if that is not a failure of the FBI, I don't know what is. I mean, they were literally as close as I am to you in this virtual square. And he just stood there. So Caitlin Collins asked Todd Blanche about this, who, of course, is Donald Trump's former personal lawyer and now deputy director of the FBI. Let's take a look of the
DOJ.
DOJ. Let's take a look.
As you know, RICO has been used to go after like Al-Qaeda, MS-13, the Gambino family. How would something like that protest fall under a RICO charge?
That's not what we use RICO for only. RICO is available to all kinds of organizations committing crimes and committing wrongful acts, not just organized crime or ISIS or terrorist organizations. And so it depends. So is it, again, sheer happenstance that individuals show up at a restaurant where the president is trying to enjoy dinner in Washington, D.C., and accost him with vile words and vile anger, and meanwhile he's simply trying to have dinner? Does it mean it's just completely random that they showed up? Maybe, but to the extent that it's part of an organized effort to inflict harm and terror and damage to the United States, there's potential investigations there, and that's what the president was saying yesterday in the Oval Office, and what he also has said in the days before that as well.
But were those women in the restaurant inflicting harm or terror or damage by protesting the president of the United States? I mean, they were just shouting basically in his vicinity.
I mean, repeat what you just said. I mean, honestly, so you're asking whether there's damage done by 4 individuals screaming and yelling at the president of our United States while he's trying to have dinner. That can't be a serious question. That cannot be a serious question. I mean, it's true that there's a difference between shouting and committing an assassination,
there were supporters outside,
which is what happened
well.
to Charlie. Well, it depends. There's nothing wrong with peaceful protests, and nobody has ever said so. Of all the people in this country, President Trump knows exactly what it's like to have people protest against him. But what he's talking about, and what the administration is talking about, is organized efforts by individuals who are not present at the protests, but they're funding these protests, and they're not protests. They're inflicting damage and harm and actually assaulting officers. They're damaging vehicles, and that's the conduct that we're trying to stop.
There is so much wrong with this interview. I don't know where to start. Where should we start? Should we start with the fact?
It's like shocking to me that he's even a lawyer, much less the number 2 DOJ official. You know?
Well, Trump couldn't get any decent lawyers. Do you remember by the time those cases were coming around, nobody wanted to be his lawyer, so he ends up with Todd Blanche, who then
yelling at the president in a restaurant is not terrorizing the United States.
Yeah.
I mean,
but why didn't Caitlin Collins say that? Why these long pauses?
I don't know. It's just when she sat there and like, what do you do? You have to interrupt. Like, I don't get that part of it. This is a batshit crazy thing to say for him. I mean, he starts out with like suggesting, you know, that okay, there's some conspiracy here. Okay, all right. Well, maybe they just happen to be like, maybe they got word of it, you know, like 10 minutes before and ran down there. Maybe they were already in the restaurant, you know, maybe they had somebody who worked there that they're friends with who told them. There's a million different reasons, but let's assume that like the premise of this conspiracy from Blanche is correct, that George Soros is funding some NGO nonprofit who pays people to harass Trump. Okay, so what? I mean, number one, I don't think that that's happening. I mean, that's kind of BS. And Trump and the Republicans, because they've had such massive protests against the administration, have to reconcile that in their brains that these are all paid protesters and they're not organic and they're not real, because that's how they have to, you know, diminish the seriousness of the pushback that the American public is giving them. But to say like, okay, there's some shadowy group that is, so what? If I paid those women to go down there and yell at Trump, what? I'm guilty of racketeering? That's what he's saying. I'm a gangster. I'm part of a conspiracy. Look, I've defended racketeering cases in court. I won a racketeering trial that was a month-long trial. I know the racketeering, and he's right. It's used against not just the mafia, but many other things. My trial was about MS-13, where, you know, they accused my guy of being an MS-13 gang leader and running a crew, and he wasn't. And so, you know, we had a big trial about that. So they do use it for other things. They don't use it to go after people who may have hired protesters. That's insane.
There are a few other things wrong with this argument. Firstly, Trump had not even sat down for dinner yet. He'd literally just come into the restaurant. He'd walked in and he was kind of, you know, like doing his I'm Donald Trump in a restaurant acting. And these women, I think, were sitting and dining potentially, but they stood up and they started shouting and they got pretty close to him, but nobody pushed him, nobody pointed a weapon at him. They were just chanting at him about Palestine and about him being a dictator, right? Perfectly legitimate protest, free protest. So to change the story and say he was trying to enjoy a quiet dinner when he'd literally just shown up. I mean, the guy doesn't even eat out, you know?
I mean, that's the other funny postscript to this is the fact that how did this whole thing come about, this dinner? It came about because Trump kept bragging over and over again that like nobody could go out to dinner before in DC before he put the National Guard in. But now it's so safe that everyone is out going to dinner and the restaurants are packed and everybody's happy. And a reporter finally called him out and said, wait a minute, Mr. President, you have never gone out to dinner. You never went out to dinner in your first term in DC, and you haven't gone out to dinner this term. You've never once. So how do you know what the restaurant scene is like in DC if you have in 5 years in DC never once gone out to eat? Literally like 4 days later, he pulls this stunt.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's a photo op. He's not going out to enjoy dinner. He's going out so he can be able to say, oh, I went out to a restaurant, everything is wonderful. And lo and behold, like the one and only time he goes out to dinner in DC, this happens.
Yeah.
Don't expect a second outing.
He doesn't even eat. I mean, this is the other thing. You know, he just fills up with Big Macs before he goes. And I was thinking that about the state banquet. I was thinking, like, they're going to be serving him quite nice food.
Because he's afraid of being poisoned. That's why he doesn't go out to eat,
right,
by the way.
So I was thinking, like, what's he going to do with King Charles? Is he going to, like, mime eating? Because there's no way he's going to eat that food. I find that whole side of it fascinating.
It's why he won't sleep anywhere,
right,
where he doesn't own the property. And it's why he doesn't eat anywhere where he doesn't own the property, because he's afraid of being filmed and poisoned.
Where's he going to sleep in London? Is he going to be going back onto Air Force One?
I'm sure he could, but he probably trusts Charles to hook him up. But that's probably like an exception, to the rule.
Yeah. So anyway, this now has obviously been blown out of all proportion. We've got the Deputy Attorney General saying that, you can't protest anymore, basically. And we've got the Attorney General saying that hate speech is not free speech. There is a seismic shift. And in my view, it's not just these individual things, but they're just testing the water, like always just testing the water, a little litmus test for what they can get away with, what they can push next. And all of these changes to American freedoms and democracy, they happen, there's a kind of drip effect. I've got a lot of metaphors here to do with chemistry, but ultimately in 6 months to a year's time, we're going to turn around and go, well, hang on a second, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that, this can't be happen, and they've taken our passports away. I mean, do you recognize that this is a concerted effort to really turn America into a fascist state?
You're right on everything. This stuff, foreign policy too. They put these things out and they wait to see the reaction.
Yeah.
And if there's no big pushback, then they go further and further and they wait for the pushback. And if it never happens, they keep going. So the irony of this is that there was virtually no pushback on any of this stuff from Democratic leadership. We've heard nothing from Schumer or Jeffries about this stuff we've been talking about. They're all wrapped up in the continuing resolution and the Affordable Care Act funding, and I appreciate that, but that's not the only thing that's important. They haven't said anything. The irony of this is the pushback they got, which forced them to kind of back off temporarily, was from the right.
That's right, from their own people.
Yeah. So we were like literally like relying on conservatives, right wingers to rein him in on this stuff. And why is that happening? Our leaders should be doing it too.
the Speaker Johnson's been involved in all of this as well, claiming that, what you can and you can't say. Let's take a quick look.
That's not helpful. That is not productive, and it leads to bad consequences. Leaders cannot call their political opponents Nazis and fascists and enemies of the state because they disagree with their policy priorities. I mean, this is something we should have learned in grade school. This type of language spurs on depraved people, deranged people who take that as a cue. And
let's just explain something to little Mike Johnson. To call Republicans, MAGA Republicans, Nazis is not a slur. It's not like, oh, you're a Nazi or your mum's a Nazi. It's a description of a type of behavior that we should have learned our lesson of in history. And the Nazification of the Republican Party it's not a kind of, it's not said for fun. It is deeply serious. And this, to kind of bat these things away like they're just slurs is a huge mistake in my view.
Well, like just me using the term, this is the Reichstag fire moment. That would be something that Mike Johnson would say would be like an incitement to violence.
It's a historical reference. We're supposed to learn from history.
The reason why I fell out of my chair, and so did, Asen, who does for Midas all of our clips of Trump rallies and stuff, is because I have listened to every single Trump rally speech for over 5 years and listen to all his interviews and podcast stuff as Asen. We know everything that he's ever said. And it was just hilarious to us to hear Mike Johnson complain about using inflammatory language about political opponents, having covered Donald Trump for 5 years, because literally we have thousands of clips of Trump calling Democrats fascists, communists, Marxist, vermin, enemies of the people. When Mike Johnson said that and Asen posted a clip, within 30 seconds, I posted 4 Donald Trump clips where he called Democrats enemies of the state. Exactly.
I have the clips.
And they were in October of 2024. I'm not going into the Wayback Machine.
Right. Yeah, this is the hypocrisy of this, which is why it's hard to take it seriously. Let's take a look.
Leaders cannot call their political opponents Nazis and fascists and enemies of the state because they disagree with their policy priorities. I mean, this is something we should have learned in grade school.
We have the enemy outside, which would be the very standard countries. And we have the enemy from within. We have some very sick people from within. It is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists. But, we do have an enemy from within. We have some very bad people, and those people are also very dangerous. They would like to take down our country. They'd like to have our country be a nice communist country or a fascist in any way they can. And we have to be careful of that. It's the enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia. But the enemy from within is a very sick group of people.
This type of language spurs on depraved people, deranged people who take that as a cue.
Yeah. I mean, it's tragic. There is a sadness associated with this.
No one has used more inflammatory language against their political opponents than Donald Trump in the history of the United States. In the history of the United States.
The division now,
not even close,
compared to 10 years ago before Donald Trump started setting this country on fire, is, at least there was an element of bipartisanship on some things. Now they literally see Democrats as the enemy.
Yeah, and vermin. All the words that Hitler used to describe Jews is what Donald Trump uses to describe Democrats. All the same things. And so this is where we're coming from, little Mike. So here's my question. This is something to watch. Mikey goes on the Sunday shows almost every Sunday, right? And mainstream ones too, CBS, NBC, all that, Meet the Press. What are the odds that someone is going to play him a montage like Midas Touch put out 30 seconds after he made? By the way, Notice Mike Johnson makes a preposterous statement. Anything come from the leaders of the Democratic Party? No. In response to what he said, nothing, not a damn word, nothing from Jeffries, nothing from Schumer, nothing from the DNC. We, Midas Touch, like 8 freaking people running an internet media company, put out a montage of 6 minutes of Trump clips within 5 minutes of Mike Johnson saying that. Imagine, with all the resources of the Democratic Party, if they actually decided to do something like that to counter these people. It would be amazing. But since they don't, our little crew who works 16 hours a day has to do it for them.
This is the collective sadness that I think people are feeling in America right now, is that there is no opposition. And the thing is, it's actually very easy to counter Trump on all of this stuff, partly because of the video evidence that you describe. It wouldn't be difficult for the Democrats to have a little team like ours operating out of remotely or in a Democratic head office or wherever, where they are constantly monitoring, using technology as we do, being able to build an archive of clips and get them out and use irony and sarcasm and all of the things. I mean, there's a little bit coming from Gavin Newsom on this. But if it was done on a national level.
They will in June of 2028.
Yeah,
they will hire 3 or 4 people for 6 months.
Too late.
And that's their plan. That's what they do.
Too late.
And the Republicans have an army of people doing it 24/7, 365, never stop.
The people that think that there is going to be a pendulum swing and that the Democrats are going to have this huge kind of landslide win because everyone is so appalled at what is happening, don't understand how American politics and the Electoral College works. And that is my fear. I think that this collective silence from Democratic leadership, I don't want to disparage any of the work that's going on the ground. There is grassroots work going on. There is door knocking and leaflet posting and protesting, which is wonderful. But the system that we have to vote, which the Republicans are undoubtedly planning right now, building this ICE army so that they can police it and intimidate and all of the stuff that goes with that. I am very, very worried that this current far-right nationalist movement is growing and not diminishing. And in the wake of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, it is only going to snowball.
So I think that people are getting a false sense of confidence because of Trump's bad approval ratings and some of these special election results, which have been very good for Democrats. Just wrote a big article about it, that Democrats in 38 of the 40 legislative races in 2025 have outperformed what those districts did in 2024. Great. The reasons for that have nothing to do with Democratic leadership. It is because of candidate quality. We have run excellent candidates. They are out there doing a great job individually. And Donald Trump's just complete toxicity and unpopularity. So it's actually happening despite a lack of leadership.
It would just be nice to be led in this moment. I think the power vacuum right now, it would be, to have people step up, but because they're so stuck in their ways about this kind of electioneering period and the, as you say, June and all of this stuff, it's like it's too late. It's just too late by then. Republicans are operating on this stuff 24/7. Okay, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and do a whole lot more. We have an update on Lisa Cook and the tax. We have Trump arguing with the press gaggle and a whole lot more. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the app today and use code UNCOVERED to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code UNCOVERED to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. And links to our sponsors are in the description below. Carrie Lake's been keeping a low profile, but she's back with a criticism of how the shooter in the Charlie Kirk murder got radicalized. Let's take a look.
We've got to stop this, folks. We can't let this go on. This violence has got to stop. It's got to stop. And I'm not going to say our side is perfect, but damn it, this is coming from the other side. How does a 22-year-old become so filled with hate? 5 years earlier, I was told he was a Trump supporter. And we sent our kids off to college and they brainwashed them. I am making a plea to mothers out there. Do not send your children into these indoctrination camps. Don't do it. Do not do it.
And the nominations for Best Actress are Carrie Lake, and Carrie Lake.
I mean, I guess it's fitting that they would use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to convey the message that people should not go to college, because that was the whole premise of what Charlie Kirk's organization was all about. That's what started it. Kirk never went to college.
One term on a remote course, I think.
You know, he would go around to college campuses and tell them to drop out. I mean, that was basically what it was for years. And so, you know, and he would tell people, don't go to college. College is, he wrote a book, I think, called College is a Scam, is one of his books. So yeah, I mean, so it's pretty fitting, but this sort of, but he sort of approached it, yes, that it's, you know, a bunch of liberal professors indoctrinating people, but also, you know, the financial part of it, student loans, and you don't really need to do that. But of course, he was able to say that because he had a billionaire sugar daddy finance him when he was 19 years old, starting his business. So yes, if you're a 19-year-old and you find a billionaire who is willing to like give you $20 million to start a business, you probably don't need to go to college. I'll give him that, but that's not most people's situation. So here's the theory. So they're sitting there and they're like, how can this kid from a good Republican MAGA family, you know, Trump supporting family from Southern Utah, rural, you know, father does kitchen cabinets, how can that kid who loves guns, grows up shooting guns, turn into someone who would shoot Charlie Kirk? How does that happen? How is that possible? So they need to like find someone to blame. You know, it's got to be Democrats. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. And so they blame it on colleges, which is like so preposterous because, like, look, the guy the last 3 years was going to school to be an electrician in a trade school in Utah. Yeah. That's not a Marxist indoctrination camp. I mean, it's just they show how foolish and preposterous and stupid they are when they try and, you know, fit somebody like this into their narrative.
But so if you say it in
what
the
does
right
it look
way,
like? What does it look like really happened here? And I know there's so many conspiracies and so many theories on the right and the left. Okay. But what it looks like really happened here is this guy really cared about a trans person who had nothing to do with this, who didn't put him up to it, didn't talk him into it, nothing to do with it.
Well, he fell in
and
love.
Charlie Kirk, if you go to his X account on Twitter, to his search bar, and you type in trans, you will find hundreds of posts by Charlie Kirk anti-trans, one more inflammatory than the next. And when he was shot, he was making an anti-trans statement at that moment. So this is somebody most likely who cared very much about a trans person or the trans community, viewed Charlie Kirk as one of the most prominent anti-trans people in the United States, and that's why he did this. It has nothing to do with George Soros or Democrats or Adam Schiff or colleges. It just is about human emotion.
I have a profound statement that I've been working on, been saving it up for you, Ron. And that is that Republicans, MAGA Republicans, Trump supporters, conservatives, by default are not fascists, right? But the policies of the recent kind of rise of the extremes of the far right, taking over the Republican Party effectively, are even too fascistic for regular conservatives. And so I think it's important, I certainly don't tar everyone with the same brush. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I think that there are plenty of Republicans, and even the household of this young man, where some of the language and the rhetoric by the likes of Charlie Kirk and others is just too much even for Republican households.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. It's too much for mine. When I was a Republican, that's why I left.
And just because you're a Republican...
When these people took over the party is when I got out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we need to remember that pigeonholing people and compartmentalizing, going, you're either on this side or you're on that side, life isn't like that. It's not black and white. And clearly this young guy grows up in a household that is a conservative household and becomes a MAGA household to a certain extent, but doesn't necessarily become an extremist household. The extremist rhetoric is relatively recent in terms of, turning up the heat, turning the dial up to 11, and this real polarizing language.
You know what the irony of all of this is that Kash, while he was fumbling around and having his dinner and tweeting out, "We got the guy," when they had some old crazy guy in custody who's goes to a lot of protests and causes problems, goes to a lot of events and causes problems, just some cranky old nut, and they had him in custody and he's tweeting, "We got the guy." When they announced on the night before this guy Robinson was ultimately arrested, when they announced, local authorities, "We have no idea who did this or where they are," and Kash is like on the brink of being fired if they don't catch this guy, who bails him out? Who bails them out? Who is the hero? The trans guy, the trans person. He or she, I'm not sure how the person identifies.
She, as far as
my
I'm aware,
understanding is they were in the process of transitioning.
Yeah, I think the governor got the language wrong.
I don't know yet, but what I'm saying is that person was the one who turned in Robinson.
Yes.
Told the police, turned over the text messages.
Did the right thing.
He or she, that person, is the hero here.
Yes.
That's the person who got Robinson arrested, not Kash Patel.
That's right.
Not the FBI, not the police. So the community, the person from the community that they are demonizing is the one who
solved the crime.
The killer.
Yeah. I also want to say something about this issue of demonizing minority groups that you think you may never have met, because I'm sure a lot of the extremist language from people about the trans community, they've never knowingly met a trans person. They probably have met dozens of them, but they just wouldn't
knowingly.
know.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's an important point.
Agree. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Whenever a one-on-one, you were to sit down with somebody who was of a minority group that you maybe had not been exposed to before, and you start to have conversations and you discover your shared humanity, you recognize that we are all the same. It doesn't matter if we have, genitals in the right or wrong places, or whether we're wearing wigs and lipstick. It's irrelevant. We are all the same. And I do feel that by trying to kind of cut the humanity out of any of these conversations, Republicans are distancing themselves from themselves. And it is a situation like this, where this young man meets somebody. He's in a Republican household. He's in a Mormon household. He meets someone that's the antithesis of what he is supposed to think is right. He falls in love, and he then takes the time to actually understand the plight of a minority in growing up in America. And so it doesn't mean that he's not a conservative anymore. It doesn't mean that he doesn't support Trump anymore. But it means in this case that the one person who has been espousing hate speech to a community of young people, Charlie Kirk, becomes enemy number one.
Probably no person more anti-trans in the United States than Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So it's natural that he picked him. And it just so happened that he was kicking off his nationwide tour in Utah.
Well, he'd said to his parents, it's a stupid idea to have it at that venue. So he obviously had been putting two and two together. And so, of course, he should never have shown up to the venue with a firearm. Of course, you do not assassinate your political enemies. Of course you don't. But in this case, it was like his love for his partner and his humanity kicked in, and he was prepared to take the consequences, or he didn't even think about the consequences. I mean, he said to his parents, I can't go to prison. So there's something in that too. I found the whole thing
and he also did not think his friend or lover, whatever it was going to turn him in.
Right.
Because obviously
keep a
he was texting with this person.
Yeah.
Talking about trying to escape and get away and all that. So, but this person did turn him in. This person did the right thing. Who was the person who did the right thing? The trans person, the kind of people that Charlie Kirk demonizes.
We have a clip from Charlie Kirk's show. I can't believe that J.D. Vance did Charlie Kirk's podcast the next day. Like, I just found that to be
from the White House.
From the White House, and purposely used the same mic, and he really went into the kind of detail to make it the same. We have this clip that you sent me earlier of Charlie Kirk kind of calling for his audience to post bail on the attacker of Paul Pelosi. Let's take a look.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com. I'm looking at the New York Times. I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But why is it that in Chicago, you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass, second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail? This happens all over San Francisco. But if you go after the Pelosi's, oh, you're let out immediately.
He wasn't let out. This is, I mean, look, the last part is all lies. It's the usual gaslighting things that they do. Cashless bail. They do cashless bail for like petty minor offenses, shoplifting and things like that. They don't do it for murder. They don't let you out on the street for murder. He didn't get out. That's number one. And his bail was not 30, 40,000. I think it was like no bond or millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So, but everyone, who's been reposting that clip, and that's a clip from 2022, has been focused on that, which is horrible. I mean, and this shows you really who he was. And I'm not trying to trash the guy after I haven't said a single negative word about Charlie Kirk since this happened. Okay. But, you know, you look at what he's saying there. He's saying that this was part of the right-wing conspiracy advanced by Elon Musk, Donald Trump Jr., and Charlie Kirk. Those were the three who were primarily advancing this theory that this person was Paul Pelosi's gay lover. He was a male prostitute, and that this was really a dispute between them, between lovers, that got out of hand and is being covered up. That was their theory. That's why he said a patriot should bail him out and ask him questions. Because what he was saying is, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's find out what this is really all about, right? So that's repulsive in and of itself. But the part I now find interesting years later is the first part, where he is complaining, ironically, that Democrats are saying that the right's inflammatory language about Pelosi is what led this man to do this. And it's like, isn't that interesting that he's saying, how can anyone say that we are responsible for this with our rhetoric? The irony is that that is exactly what they're saying today about the Charlie Kirk, is that Democrats are responsible for this.
And also flying the flags at half-staff, talking about him like he was Martin Luther King Jr., like, you know, giving him this kind of this eulogy to somebody who went and spread hate. I mean, all this thing about him being a great debater, like he didn't debate ever. Like what you see him doing in on these college campuses is not debate as I know it, and it was just terrible. All of it.
Troy Nell's congressman said today from Texas if Charlie Kirk had been alive back when Jesus was on the earth, he would have been one of his apostles. That's where we're at. I mean, it's like the deification of this guy.
Yeah.
And what happened to him is terrible. It should never happen. I would never advocate political violence in any way or celebrate
but it should still be okay
I have not.
To discuss it and analyze it without being victimized.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, you know, try and turn him into some kind of saint. Well, no, he was no saint.
It's just a remarkable time. I mean, this is, you know, as I was saying earlier, I really feel that the momentum from this tragic assassination is going to be weaponized in a way that we have, you know, not that they ever needed an excuse to militarize the country before, but now they really do have one.
Yep.
And that, you know, worries me greatly. And even to the extent that Trump, I mean, I'm going to play this clip now of him being asked if a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity. But just the way that he responds, again, it's that drip, drip, turning up the dial on authoritarianism. Let's take a look.
Nobody has ever done on the border like I've done.
Mr. President, what will you tell President Zelensky if you meet with him in New York?
Well, he's going to have to get going and make a deal. He's going to have to make a deal. Zelensky's going to have to make a deal. And Europe has to stop buying oil from Russia. Okay? You know, they talk, but they have to stop buying oil from Russia.
Mr. President, there are some
consistently regarded to be the wealthiest man who's ever occupied the White House. How much wealthier are you now than when you returned to the White House? Well, I don't know the deals I made for the most part, other than what my kids are doing. You know, they're running my business. But most of the deals that I've made were made before. And that's what I've done for a life. I built buildings, like I'm building a building here. You know where I'm building? You know what? You see that area? Yeah. That is going to be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. And for 150, so it gives me pleasure to do it for the country. And I'm paying for it. I'm paying for it. The country's not, and that's an expensive ballroom. I think it'll cost $250 million, and it will be, I think, the finest ballroom. So for 150 years, John, you know this? They've wanted a ballroom, and now they're going to finally have it, and it's going to knock your socks off.
But is it appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office
should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well,
go ahead, John.
When the UAE does a deal like
you can set a nicer
tone. When the UAE does a deal, what does it want in return?
Quiet.
Mr. President, what are you hearing about the operation in Gaza, the Israeli operation?
Quiet.
You know, I've been waiting for someone to ask him about the crypto scam that he's running.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, the greatest and most corrupt political scandal in American history.
100%.
Nobody talks about it. Nobody writes about it. There was a great story in the New York Times exposing a lot of this, and that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody follows up on it. And finally, at a press gaggle on his way to the helicopter to fly to England, an Australian reporter asks him about it.
From ABC News.
It takes an Australian broadcasting, ABC.
Yeah.
Right? It takes an Australian reporter. And by the way, he gets 10 seconds out and Trump threatens Australia because he's asked about this. What does that tell you? It tells you two things. He knows this is a bad deal and he doesn't want to talk about it. And number two, it really sucks that you know, oh, let's go to Jonathan Karl. I want to talk about Gaza. Now, not saying that Gaza is not important, but this is how our media allows politicians to slide off the hook, is because they allow him to, like, okay, I don't like your question, I'm going to you. And then that guy does him a favor and changes the subject, which is exactly what he wants. Look, here's what's going on here. When he set up this crypto scam, which he set up, he says, oh, that was before. I made these deals before I went in the White House. Yes, he did. He's telling the truth there. January 19th, 2025, the day before he took office, he set up World Liberty Financial, which Eric Trump and Don Jr. are running. Okay? But it wasn't really worth anything at that point in time. It has since become his holdings worth $4 billion. Why? Well, we now know it's because the crypto world's very shadowy. There's not any report. This is what we complained about. If a president is going to be running a crypto company, none of this is regulated, that foreign governments, this was what we said on this show back then, foreign governments can bribe the president by buying his crypto, and no one would know about it. There's no regulations. It's a backdoor way to put money in the pocket of the president of the United States in exchange for something from the government. And now what we know is that has happened. That UAE put $2 billion in Trump's crypto company, I think in April. And what did they get? They got something that they have wanted very badly. Highly sensitive chip technology for AI, because they want to develop an AI company. They understand AI's the future in a lot
so
of
dangerous as well.
And the United States had highly advanced that. Republicans in Congress were blocking that technology from being offshored for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump, 1 month after UAE put $2 billion into his pocket in crypto, freed up that technology and gave it to him. How is this not the greatest bribery scandal in the history of the world? And we have gotten one question of Trump about it from a reporter from Australia for 10 seconds.
And
that's
in return,
where we're at in America.
And in return, Trump is going to try and have that reporter fired at the very least.
He threatened Australia.
Yeah.
That's right.
Let's take a look at Eric Trump being asked about this deal.
This is today, Eric. Two big deals. And just, I'm sure you hear about this all the time. You've got a way, obviously, of explaining that. I mean, you've thought about that when you talk to the president about this, or when Don talks about some of his investments, or with Mr. Witkoff as well. In this one, they're talking about the UAE investing some money at the same time that they were granted access to some chips, and not saying it's related, but it could be. You're going to see this again and again in mainstream media in terms of a conflict of interest between the president and his position and his family being able to do so well in crypto.
Yeah. Joe, how long have I been sitting at this table? Like 20-something years, meaning I've been doing this with you guys for a very long time.
Yep.
You know, we're far from Hunter Biden, right? The guys out there selling.
That's what people are. Right. People say all presidents' sons do these things.
Okay. The guys out there selling finger art, right? You know, I've run one of the great hospitality companies, you know, anywhere in the world. You know, we went through hell. Believe me, my father's the first guy who hasn't made money off of the presidency. In fact, you know, if I were to send you a tally of our legal bills over the last
and the brand,
X number of
the Trump
years.
brand probably got
Listen,
obviously.
We've always been, you know, serial capitalists. We've always had companies, and honestly, crypto came out of a necessity that we were debanked by everybody, and we needed to find a new way. And so I couldn't be more proud of American Bitcoin. We're obviously ringing the bell right in this room, and you know, a couple minutes, and you know, it's going to be an amazing venture. I think we're going to do Bitcoin. I think we're going to do cryptocurrency better than anyone. We've truly built one of the great companies, one of the great crypto companies. And by the way, one thing, America's got to lead the way in it. I mean, I watch in age.
It's just agony.
Why did my doctor increase my blood pressure medication this week, Anthony?
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. Interviews like that.
But
I mean,
why?
give me a. I mean,
it's going to get worse.
I watched that and I was furious. This was the one and only time that Eric Trump will be on a mainstream media channel talking and being asked about this subject. Fox will never ask him about this. Newsmax never will. This is the one shot, the one chance you get to ask Eric Trump, who is directing this crypto operation, about this scandal with UAE. And what does Kernan say? This is CNBC. This is not Fox.
Yep.
What does Kernan say? This little story that came out, New York Times, mainstream media cares about this nonsense. UAE invested some money, $2 billion invested some money, and then what does he do? Hunter Biden. Well, Hunter Biden sold paintings. And then he goes, well, Joe, look, seriously, we had to set up this crypto company because we were debanked. So his story is like, no bank in America would do business with the Trump organization is his story.
So we had to go
and
to
that's
a
why we had to do crypto. Give me a break. That's a blatant lie. And how can Joe Kernan from CNBC sit there and listen to that shit and not say anything? He should be fired. This is why we are in the mess we're in. This is our media.
The media with ownership change. We're going to see another shift with CNN going under the umbrella of Larry Ellison. There's going to be a whole shift that I really honestly think that we are over the next few weeks, we're going to see an even further fall with the mainstream and corporate media. I mean, I have to say, ABC in Australia is a fantastic news network. If you watch Australian 60 Minutes, you see how much better it is than American 60 Minutes, right? There is just a way of doing proper journalism outside of the US, which just does infotainment. And for even all the mainstream, the CBS, the ABC, and the NBCs, they have lost all credibility in this moment, and they have failed to do their job as part of a democracy to hold leadership to account. And I feel very sorry for it. I'm only pleased that you and I sit on the largest independent news network in the country, and that is funded by its viewers, because that
at least
is
the people who watch us know what's going on.
Yeah.
Nobody else does, but at least the people who watch this show know what's really going on behind the scenes with with this mob, and that's what it is. It's an organized crime operation.
Yeah. And the mobster in charge is currently in a golden carriage / cage being entertained by the King of England. You literally couldn't make this shit up. We have to finish, but I'm grateful for the time that we spend together, Ron, and hopefully your blood pressure remains stable enough that we can come back next week and do it again. Download the podcast, drops tonight, and check out the sponsors below. Share the show, watch it again, and join us next week. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right.